Okay, I want to thank everybody for joining us today for a first look at Workful. If you're watching this, either the live or the recorded version, um, you're here to evaluate whether or not Workful is going to be a good fit for you or your clients' businesses. So that's the point of this webinar, and that's what we're going to try to accomplish in this short 30 to 40 minute presentation. So my name is Dennis O'Keefe. I'm actually going to turn this camera off because it distracts me more than anything. All right, we'll get started. So the name of this presentation is Workful, a first look to help you evaluate Workful. So what I wanted to do is go through all the areas that we typically get questions on when people are evaluating Workful for the first time or during their free trial, questions that come up that help them ensure that it's going to be a good fit for them for the long haul. So on today's agenda, we're going to look at the employee experience. We're going to cover some of the whys. So why would you have your employees access the program? How can they do it, and what is there for them to take advantage of that will also make your life easier? Up next is automated tax filing overview. That's one of the number one things we get questions about when people have found us online. So we'll run through just two slides to answer the frequently asked questions there. Then we're going to demonstrate the payroll run. We'll go over the options that you'll have for running payroll for your company. And then we'll cover just a few more things to know, random things that pop up with new customers and with people who are, again, evaluating Workful for the first time. So first off, let's talk employee experience. Now, if you found us because you were looking to run a direct deposit or e-file your tax returns, your quarterly payroll tax returns, you may not have known that we also offer some employee tooling that syncs up with payroll, and at the end of the pay period can save you a significant amount of time. But I just want to run through these bullet pointed employee tools that your team will be able to take advantage of. The number one thing that employees do when they're accessing Workful is viewing their pay stubs. So whenever you run payroll in Workful, we're going to have a PDF of your employee's pay stub waiting for them in their employee portal. And they can access those pay stubs anytime from the mobile app or from the web. And they'll be able to access any pay stub you've ever generated for them. So up next is a time clock. This is a big item typically when people are shopping. So we've got a built-in timesheet system that will sync up with payroll. So if your employees are clocking in and out from their mobile app or from the web portal, when you go to run payroll, we'll pull all that timesheet data in. Now, I noted there that it's geo-fenced so that you know your employees are clocking in when they're at work, not when they're, on the couch or on their way to work. So you set up a perimeter of 100 to 1,000 feet and beyond if you want it larger than that. That will disable the clock in and clock out feature unless they are within that perimeter. Up next is time off requests. So your employees will be able to manage, you'll be able to manage company time off policies, and employees will be able to manage their time off by submitting vacation or sick time off requests through these employee portals. Next, you've got expense and mileage reimbursements. This is something that not everybody takes advantage of, but if you have sales reps who are on the move, taking clients out to lunch or prospects out to lunch, if you have delivery folks who need to get reimbursed for mileage, They can do all that from their mobile phone. So very convenient. And then last but not least, the mobile application that I've already mentioned several times. Employees can download that to create their accounts and to access each of these features. So a couple questions you want to ask when you're getting started with Workful. And number one, from the employee side, is do you want to use the employee tools? And at this point, it's all included in the monthly fee structure. And the question for you is, do you have a use for any of those tools in your business? And if the answer is yes, then you'll want to get your employees access to the program. The second question, if they are going to have access, do you want them to help onboard themselves to the company? And what I mean by this is if you would like to go that route, we generate an email to your employees and they would create a username and password for Workful. And their first duty would be to enter in all their essential personal information that'll enable you to pay them through Workful. So think things like as simple as address, their W-4 allowances, their bank account information for direct deposit, their social security number, all information that you might have on hand, but maybe things that you would rather have your employee handle due to the sensitivity of that information. It also saves you a little bit of time when you're setting up your account with us. So instead of spending a few minutes in each employee, you're simply plugging in their name, their wages, and their email, and then they can fill out the rest. And probably the number one question we get about employees is, what are the fees? And the monthly fee is $5 a month per active employee. And I say per active employee because you do have the option to mark an employee inactive. And we hear this a lot from small businesses with some seasonality to their business models, where they may have more employees in the summertime, more employees, or let's say it's retail, they may have more employees around the holidays. So if you've marked an employee inactive, you will not be billed for that employee for the off months. Or if another use case would be if you had to let an employee go or an employee quit, you would mark them inactive and then not have to pay for them, but retain all of that historical data for your year-end reporting. All right, up next, we've got the automated tax filing. And this is typically one of the first questions we get when someone signs up for a free trial, or if an accountant is looking at us to evaluate for their clients. So I've got 2 slides on it. It's real simple. Okay, so how does it work? Very simple. You authorize us to file your payroll taxes on your behalf. And then we collect the payroll taxes every time you run payroll. And whenever they're due, we make the payments for you, and we file the returns for you as well. So to get started in the onboarding widget, we've got 3 steps that are essential to get your full service tax filing turned on. Number 1 is you'll need to put in a bank account, and that's where we'll draft your tax liability out of. Up next, you'll enter your federal tax information, so your EIN and your tax deposit schedule. And then depending on which state you live in, you'll have some different information about your state unemployment insurance and taxes that we'll need to get from you in order to pay those for you. And if you've gotten to this step and you weren't able to plug in the state tax information, something I want to point out is that you first need to add a team member with state information, so the state that they work in, And that's how we know which state to populate in this view. All right, now getting down to the kind of meat and potatoes of this presentation, where we're going to talk about the payroll run, and then we're going to log into a dummy account so you can see firsthand what it would look like to process payroll. And while we're doing that, I'm also going to jump over and show you the employee side of the program so you can see exactly what your employees would experience if you choose to give them access to the program as well. So first off, the options for payroll run. What you'll typically do is just a regular payroll run, and we've got a quick button on the admin dashboard, as well as an option to run payroll in the payroll feature from the left-hand menu that I'll show you in a moment. So some important information though, on the regular payroll run, that's going to be set to your company pay schedule. So if when you set up your account, you're set up as a weekly payroll run or a biweekly or monthly payroll run, when you log into your dashboard and you hit run payroll, it's going to take that first pay period that you are currently in, and then the next time you go to run payroll, it's going to automatically move forward to the following pay period, so that the dates are always moving forward in accordance with your pay schedule. The other thing to know is that it syncs with those employee features. So if you're using the timesheet that Workful offers, you will be able to hit run payroll. We're going to pull in all that data from your employees' timesheets directly into the payroll run, so you're not having to transcribe them from another program or copy and paste them from a spreadsheet. They're just going to be in there. You can edit them on the fly, and I'll demonstrate that here in a moment. The off-cycle payroll run would be one typically used for things like bonuses, or if for whatever reason an employee wasn't able to be included on the company's payroll run, then you would run an off-cycle payroll run for them. Also, if you have any employees that aren't on the regular pay schedule, so if you have one employee that's paid quarterly and the rest are paid biweekly, you'd pay that one employee with an off cycle. And then third, we've got a contractor payroll run in case you currently have any 1099 contractors, or if you occasionally have 1099 contractors. It's a simple way to track all your payments to them. And then at the end of the year, we will automatically file a 1099 for that contractor. Okay, so what I'm going to do is pull up this demo company. There we go. All right. So what we are looking at right now is a demo account that's full of fake data. So there's nothing sensitive here that you're going to see, but this will give you an idea of what it looks like to process payroll for your company. So front and center, we've got the payroll widget on the dashboard, and that's going to show you the upcoming or the current pay period. And if you're on direct deposit, which this test company is not, it's going to show you what day you have to run and the time of day that you have to run payroll by in order for your employees to get paid on time. On the right, we've got your historical payroll data. So if you need to access a pay stub or you need to pull a report about one of these pay periods, you can just click on it and that'll take you directly into that payroll run. Okay, so first things first, we're just going to run payroll, and I'm going to through the regular payroll run, and I'm going to identify some areas that we get questions on, or that I think might help you get a good idea of what it'd be like to use the product. So you hit that button, run payroll. And first thing we're going to notice is that there's a pending approval. And what this means is that one of your employees has submitted a request that has to do with that pay period that hasn't been addressed yet. So it looks like, or an issue. So it looks like there's an issue with Dennis's timesheet. So this gives you the opportunity to go and view that and correct it, or you can ignore it and we'll just fix it on the fly, which is what I think we're going to do today. If you are leveraging time off or timesheets and your employee submits a request for a time clock edit that affects this particular time period or pay period, or if they submit a PTO request that is within this pay period, but you haven't approved or denied it yet, it's going to pop up here so that you can do that before you process payroll. All right, so on this next view, we're going to scroll down a fuzz here. Ashley here's a salaried employee, so you can see we've got her gross salary pay here. If you'd like to, you can edit any of these inputs. So if she's a commission employee, you can add commission on the fly. If there are reimbursements that you need to pay to her, and you are not using our reimbursement system, you can also plug those in on the fly. If you are, however, using the expense reimbursement system, she would have already submitted a request for a reimbursement. And if you approved it, it would automatically show up here. I know we saw before Dennis had some issues with his hours. I'm just going to change that to 40. There we go. So you can see Dennis's wages, the hours, and the gross amount on his check. Now, if you are a restaurant, or if you deal with tips, or if you are a payroll professional and you have clients who need to record tips, you'd hit that. We'll take a step back here. You'd hit additional earnings, where you would find cash tips reporting and tips included and checked. That's a question we get pretty often. Okay, so again, if you're not using the timesheet, what you'll do is scroll through and fill out everybody's hours. And then now I'm just going to scroll down to the bottom. You'll also notice here on the left-hand side, you've got the option to skip an employee if you know there's an issue with that employee's bank account, or with if there's maybe a disagreement over some hours worked, but you need to get payroll in for the company. You can skip them during the normal payroll run and then go back and run an off cycle for them. If you are set up for direct deposit, there's also going to be, these are going to all be defaulted to direct deposit, and you'll have the option to print checks at any point in case there's an issue maybe with your bank account. Okay. On step 2, we've got our time off. So again, if you're using the PTO feature, this is all going to be synced up. If you're not using that feature, you can plug in hours on the fly. We'll choose a policy for her. There we go. All right, on the last step of the payroll run, what you would typically do is download the summary, and that's gonna enable you to take a real granular look at employees' pay stubs and at the company total payroll. But you'll see here we've got each employee listed out with their net amount being paid to them, their withholdings totals and deductions totals, and then the company taxes. And then all the way to the right, we've got that gross total for that employee. So we just created this PDF for you. I'm going to click on that PDF. And from here, we can see the summary for the entire company on this first page. and that breaks out the federal and state tax contributions. And then we've got each employee pay stub listed out. So again, you can take a real granular look to make sure everything looks correct and identify any issues before you print those paychecks or before you initiate the direct deposit. So as I mentioned on the auto tax file portion of the presentation, at this point, what we're going to do is when you submit this payroll, if you are printing checks or if you're doing direct deposit, we're going to pull all that tax liability. And whenever the payments are due to your state and federal agencies, we're going to make them for you. But at the same time you run payroll is when we collect those funds. So again, this company's on printed checks. So I'm going to submit payroll. And then what the program does is creates PDFs for checks for each of my employees that I can then print out on check stock. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit, but it works the exact same way as that payroll summary report. You'll download the checks. And again, this is only if you have opted to print paper checks instead of direct deposit. So each employee's got their paycheck here. You're going to print this out on check stock in your office, and then sign the check and hand it off to them. So I'm going to say, yes, we did it. And we got a little celebration here. Congratulations. Okay. Oh, then you'll see here, as I mentioned earlier, we've now updated the pay period. So the next time you log in to run payroll, it's going to be set to the upcoming pay period. Now, we talked about two other types of payroll runs. One of them is this off-cycle payroll run. And again, this is something that you would use if you were maybe paying out a one-time bonus to staff, or if you wanted to handle things like commissions or bonuses for individual employees separate from the normal payroll run. What you could do here is say, we're going to just pick on Ashley here. We're going to say she's getting a $1,500 commission. She made a bunch of sales this quarter and needs a check for it. And then you'll notice the rest of the employees are blank. So let's scroll to the bottom. You'll see that we've got Ashley here for the time off. We're just going to save and skip through that. And then on this step, you see you've got the ability to edit any deductions or withholdings for that individual. So at this point, if you needed to adjust Ashley's 401k contribution, you can do that on the fly, and that's going to recalculate so that it reports correctly for your year-end reporting. And then when we continue there, we got a payroll summary that's going to include Ashley, and everybody else is zeroed out. Okay, I'm going to cancel this. And again, if it's a direct deposit, we're going to initiate the direct deposit when you hit submit payroll. If it's a printed check, we are going to generate a PDF for you that you can print out. And now lastly, we've got the contractor payroll. Let's see if I've got any. Yep. Okay. I've got two active contractors here. So we've got Dennis O'Keefe getting paid a standard $5,000 every pay period. And then we've got Stephen Smith, who's set up as with an hourly rate. So he's going to bill you, Stephen will bill you for however many hours, and then you will plug them in here in the payroll run. And then you've got the option to add additional earnings if if maybe they did a side job under a different rate, or there was a one-time payment that you owed them for a service they provided, you can plug that in during the payroll run, and also have the option to include a personal note. We're going to zero that out because we don't want to pay Dennis's pay period. You'll save and continue. There's not going to be any PTO step on this because obviously these are contractors. And at this point, when you submit payroll, it's either going to be, again, that check printout process, or we will initiate an ACH to that contractor. And then at the end of the year, as I mentioned before, we will file a 1099 based on a sum of all the payments that you've made to each contractor. Okay, so really quickly, I just want to kind of go over the dashboard so you've got an idea of what you're looking at when you log in. On the left-hand side, you've got team members, and this is where you will manage your employees and contractors. It's also where you'll add or edit any employees or contractors. You've got the payroll feature that we just covered. You've got time clock, and this is where you will be able to review your employees' timesheets. You can see how many hours each employee has for this week. You can go in and edit timesheets by clicking on that employee. Documents allows you to upload and share documents across the organization or with individual employees. Time off is where you'll administer PTO policies to your employees. Expenses and mileage is, as we covered before, gives you the ability to reimburse employees for company-related expenses or company-related travel. Got your reports where you will be able to pull reports for your accountant, for your own record keeping. Payroll tax forms, which we won't go into, but if you wanted to review taxes or if you wanted to handle taxes yourself, you'd be able to do that, administer them through the payroll tax forms feature, and then settings. So I'm going to pause this share real quick, and I'm going to pull up the employee dashboard. All right, so this looks a lot like the administrative dashboard, the navigation menu on the left, and the layout from in the workspace of the dashboard look very similar. But what we're viewing here is a employee portal, and what you'll notice is that front and center we've got the time clock, so that when an employee gets to work, they're able to log into their computer, hit clock in, and get to work. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning, all of these features here on the left, aside from documents, are also going to be available in the mobile app. So if an employee wants to download that mobile app and stay connected to the company, they're able to do that as well. So below that, we've got an employee pay stub, so they can see their most recent pay stub. If they need to get an older pay stub for income verification when they're getting a mortgage or an auto loan, you hit view all. That's going to take them into their historical pay stub, and they can download any of these to PDF and email them off to their banker. One of the things I pointed out earlier that I just want to look into really quickly is that if an employee needs to make a timesheet adjustment, they can do that. And when they make the adjustment, what we're going to do is we'll go ahead and make one real quick. Okay, so what's going to happen at this point is when the employee submits that request, the administrator is going to get a notification saying that this employee made a time clock adjustment. Would you like to approve or deny it? And if it's approved, those hours are, again, going to automatically pull into that pay period, payroll run. You'll notice when I save it on the employee side, it doesn't automatically save, but once it's approved, it will. And the employee will receive a notification whether it's been approved or denied. A few more things that we wanted to share with you. Questions that we get a lot, or just information that we thought might be helpful for you to evaluate us. So one of the number one questions we get is, who do we integrate with? And our integration is with QuickBooks. So if you currently manage your bookkeeping through QuickBooks Online, you'll be able to sync up your Workful and QuickBooks account so that anytime you run payroll in Workful, we are going to push the data over to QuickBooks so that your ledger and your P&L are all up to date in real time. Number two is, can you give your accountant access? And yes, we've got a dashboard called Workful Pro that enables accountants to log into their clients' accounts. And that's something, if you would like to give your accountant access to your account, reach out to us and let us know. We'll tell you how to work through that process. We've got a checks partner called Checks for Less that formats checks specifically for our program. If you are moving over from a different program and have some leftover check stock, there's a chance that it will work. Call our technical support team and we can help you troubleshoot it in case it's not perfect. But if they're not and you got to order new ones, this company offers very low cost check stock. And then lastly, we've got a role management feature that will enable you to have your employees approve and or deny employees' requests that they manage. So one less thing for the payroll admin to do, or if you're the owner of the company, one less thing for you to do. All right, and that's all. So we really appreciate you joining us for the live webinar or watching the recording of it. If you have any questions about it, visit us at workful.com or give us a call at 866-WORKFUL. You can always email us at support@workful.com.